Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Police Chief Shon Barnes, Shonbarnes. With me is Assistant Chief Brian Austin, who commands our Investigative Services Unit. Before I begin with the specifics, let me say that it's been a very long day for many in our community, a very tough day. We're here today to talk about the tragic death of a 20-month-old precious girl whose death is now being investigated as a homicide. I want to take a moment to give our respect and condolences to her family and to honor her life. We express our sorrow for the anguish that her and her family must be feeling now with the loss of such a precious young child. Around 2:45 a.m. this morning, officers were called just behind me to the 5600 block of Schrader Road to check on a woman who was screaming for help, saying that a man had killed her baby. Officers arrived to find the baby in very serious condition. She was alive at the time, and our officers immediately began giving first aid to this little child. The child was rushed to a local hospital by EMS, where she was later pronounced deceased. The little girl's mother was also assaulted during this incident, and she was also taken to the hospital with very serious injuries. She is expected to survive. 23-year-old Marshawn G Giles was taken into custody immediately in this apartment building. Officers were able to get Giles into custody safely, even though he began to resist arrest. This man has a long criminal history, and a recent DOC warrant lists him as armed and dangerous. He is also known to possess firearms, and officers observed at least one firearm at the scene of this apartment at this time. We are investigating this case as a homicide. However, the exact cause and manner of the death will be determined by the medical examiner. There were no other children inside the apartment at this time. It seems like this, as I have investigated this case as a juvenile victim detective many years ago, are very hard for everyone involved. Sometimes it's difficult to understand how someone could do something like this. It's a painful day for the family who's directly involved, the community, myself, who's trying to understand why and how something like this could happen, and the officers who responded to what we consider the worst call you can get in police work. I want to thank our officers who bravely entered the apartment not knowing what to expect. And I want to thank the detective and investigators, some of which are still here, who have been collecting evidence and processing the scene and trying to determine what may or may not have happened here. Their work will be important to get justice for a 20-month-old girl who was taken too far, too soon. I will, at this time, take a few questions before I go and check on the officers who are processing and working in this crime scene.
You mentioned that the suspect had a long criminal history. Do we know yet if Child Protective Services was involved at this home in the past?
Absolutely. Last Thursday, our officers got a call regarding a possible child assault. It was not this child, but it was the sibling of this child. And this person was listed as someone who may have been involved in that case. So since Thursday, we've been working with Child Protective Services in order to determine what happened in that case. It's important to note that in that process, the older children who were not here at this time were only not here because our officers made arrangements to have those child stay with the grandparents. So they were not here at the time of this particular incident.
Chief, what is the relationship between everyone here?
It appears that there's some type of domestic relationship between the suspect that I mentioned and the victim. It's unsure whether he's the biological father or not. However, there's some type of domestic relationship.
Did he live here with the mother?
It appears so.
And the incident last Thursday, was the person taken into custody?
He was not taken into custody because he was not located. If he had been located, where had been located, he would have been taken into custody on a DOC hold.
Why were any children?
This apartment, I'm not sure. We can get you that information.
Why were any children left in the home?
That will be between CPS or whoever was involved, but those children who were involved in the incident on Thursday were, those children who were involved in the incident on Thursday were not here based on prior arrangements while we investigated that case.
Chief, I'm sorry to ask, but are you able to say how the baby was injured?
I'm not at this time. I think that the medical examiner's report will give us a more detailed description of what happened. Absolutely.
Do you know when that autopsy will be completed?
Detective? Tomorrow.
Can you describe the mother's injuries?
The mother had injuries that were consistent with trauma, blunt force trauma, but again, she's being held for observation and she is expected to survive. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.